Well, this movie's gonna catch a lot of shit. Run, Hide, Fight is brought to us by director Kyle Rankin and stars Isabel May, Eli Brown, Thomas Jane, and Trent Williams. We follow Zoe, played by Isabel May, a teenage senior in her final days of high school. Zoe's been having a hard time at it because her mother recently passed away from cancer. So now Zoe and her father, played by Thomas Jane, are just trying to make it through this thing called life. However, Zoe is having a really hard time coping with her mother's death, and she's been pushing away everyone in her life. And this leaves her pretty lonely and isolated as a whole. On senior prank day, Zoe goes to school much like she would any other day. However, unbeknownst to her, this will be unlike any other day for the entirety of her life. About halfway through the day, a van comes crashing through the cafeteria wall, and emerging from said van comes 4 armed students headed up by Eli Brown's Tristan. They proceed to start shooting, and not everybody makes it. They lock everything down and gather all the kids in the cafeteria, and then tell them to get their phones out and start live streaming. During all this, Zoe is in the bathroom, and amongst all the confusion, she is able to run away. And then she has to hide. And then she decides to fight. Run, Hide, Fight is a tense movie. It deals with a sensitive situation that pretty much everybody is well aware of. School shootings have unfortunately over the past 25 or so years become a reality. As fucked up as it is, they are just a part of the world that we live in now. And this film details the situation from beginning to end. However, instead of being from the outside looking in like most of us are used to, we now get a look at the inside at things as they happen. And the movie doesn't pull any punches. It's not grotesque or over the top or anything, but it is absolutely violent, and it does show these things as they happen in the movie. However, it's not like stylized or anything. When people die and shots ring out in this movie, it's not like, oh look, a really cool action scene. No, it's much more of a tense, kind of horrifying situation. We're all aware of the aftermath and everything that comes along with one of these situations. But this is about the actual event, how it went down, and what it was like on the inside while this was happening. This is something that most of us have not experienced before, and it is pretty tense and unnerving for a good bit of the time. The idea of this movie really runs the risk of offending a lot of people, but I think they actually did a good job with it. It never trivializes what's going on here. It never plays it for big, over-the-top, exciting action either. Now, on the flip side of that, is the movie 100% believable? No, it's not. There are a few things in it that I was like, I don't think that's how it would work out. But it is very tense and entertaining. I mean, it's a movie, that's its goal, and that's what it does. While it never does trivialize or make light of these types of situations, they did still make this movie entertaining. On a basic level, it gives us what we want. We have some really bad people come and do some really bad things. We have a character we've grown to like who's trying to get away from the situation and survive. And when eventually pushed into a corner, she has to fight back. But not only does she fight back, but she fights back with a vengeance. Believable? Maybe not totally. Entertaining? Absolutely. We want to see the people that have had wrong done to them get their revenge. We want to see these guys who have done really bad get theirs in the end. Now, I'm not spoiling anything here, but I will say that this movie plays out pretty much the way you expect it to. You might not know like the specifics of exactly how it's going to work out, but throughout the vast majority of this movie, you know pretty much how this thing's going to end. Like big picture, you know how things are going to work out as a whole. But that's okay, because the way they deliver that to us is fairly satisfying. The movie doesn't waste a lot of time getting to its central story beats. It has enough time in the beginning of the film to introduce us to the important players, give us a bit of backstory so that we can get a bit of a connection, and then it moves into its major story arc. And from there, we're in the school with these characters just trying to survive. And that's really all it is just these kids trying to survive an active shooter situation. Though it is heightened and dramatized a bit to make the experience more entertaining. This is not like a real-life docudrama or anything like that. They're not trying to make this as nitty-gritty, hardcore real as possible. And I think that goes along with something else I'm going to mention about the film, and that would be politics. Now, you can be forgiven for going into this movie expecting it to have a lot of politics to it, thinking that it might have an agenda or some type of message or something like that. But it doesn't. The movie doesn't touch that stuff at all. It has nothing to do with any of that. There's a couple of throwaway lines here or there in the background that touch on the whole video games and violence and stuff like that, but nothing serious. There's no points to be made here. There's no like big message they're trying to cram down your throat. And that does kind of make sense because all that stuff comes in the aftermath aftermath. It comes in that part that we've all seen before. This movie's about the actual shooting itself, as things happen, what's going on, what's running through people's minds. These kids don't give a shit why these other kids are there with guns murdering people. They just want to survive, and that's what the movie's about. They're shooters, and they're murdering people, and we need to get the fuck out and survive. They give no shits why they're there shooting people. All they care about is survival, and that ultimately is all the movie cares about. It doesn't really make a big deal or even really concretely say why these students are doing what they're doing. I mean, one of the characters in a small scene of the movie does kinda sorta give a half-ass reason as to why he's doing this, but the character he's speaking to quickly shuts him down and says more or less, shut the fuck up, you're just giving excuses now. The vast majority of this movie has nothing to do with all that. The politics, all that bullshit, it's not here. This is purely about the situation as it plays out. And that is probably one of the best decisions they made while taking on this project. Don't throw politics into it, because that shit just ruins everything. As a whole, I did enjoy the story of Run, Hide, Fight. It's got some really interesting characters, a snappy pace, and while yes, it is pretty unnerving and tense at times, at the end of the day, it knows what it is, a piece of entertainment. It is a movie. Now, our performances here are all very solid. Isabel May as Zoe is a great protagonist and someone you really want to follow throughout the runtime of this film. She did a great job of showing that pain that she's feeling on the inside from the loss of her mother. She also did a great job of being a badass once she gets pushed to that breaking point. She's well on her way of being a great Laurie Strode or Sarah Connor, and I really liked it. She's pretty badass. Eli Brown as ringleader Tristan was solid as well. His character was a little bit shallow at times, and he was just kind of bad because I'm just bad, but admittedly, he did do really good at being bad. Brown's performance definitely elevated the character, making him even more menacing than if a lesser actor had taken on the role. Though I do attribute some of the shallowness of the shooters to the fact that I don't think that the film really wanted to delve too deeply into their backstories or their motivations for fear of possibly getting too political. And while I do think you still could have built these characters a bit more, I get it. And even with that, they're all still menacing and they serve their purpose within the movie. Everybody else here does a good job as well, with the likes of Radha Mitchell, Treat Williams, and Thomas Jane. And admittedly, while I was a bit disappointed that Thomas Jane didn't throw on the Punisher shirt and take the school by storm, overall, everybody did a really solid job in the performance department. Guys, I did really enjoy Run, Hide, Fight. When coming into this movie, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if the movie was gonna have some message it was trying to cram down my throat. Admittedly, that is what was expected, but thankfully, that is the furthest thing from the truth. The movie just tells the story. Here's the events, here's what happened. And sure, it's an age-old story of people being pushed and pushed and pushed until they triumphantly fight back. But who doesn't love those stories? And the people that they're fighting back against in this movie totally fucking deserve it. Is this a totally believable movie? No, but if they had gone that route, I don't know if the movie would have worked as well. And going the more entertaining route, yet while still trying to be respectful of the more sensitive material, I think that the movie was more of a success. It had some really solid performances, an entertaining story, and some great characters that you really wanted to get behind. Run, Hide, Fight did what it set out to do. It entertained, and it is absolutely worth a rent.
All he wanted was this.
I have to return some videotape.
Despite what I thought that this may have been going into it, I really did enjoy this movie. And while I know that people will attempt to insert politics into this movie that does everything it can not to have them in it, just know that that's not what it is. It's just a movie that is here to entertain you. And if an entertaining yet tense story that does deal with a sensitive subject sounds like an entertaining time for you, then check out Run, Hide, Fight, and I think you'll have a good time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Run, Hide, Fight. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Vernon.
People aren't gonna remember you.
No?
They're gonna remember me.
Now, even though I mentioned in the review ad nauseum that this is about a sensitive subject and that it's not a political movie and I didn't really see any politics there, and I thought that was a great thing, people are going to inevitably inject their own politics into it, because I've learned that much about politics and people. If they want to see something, especially politics, in something, they're going to see it. No matter what you say, they're going to see it. It will be there. I've experienced this with other movies I've reviewed that had had nothing to do with certain subject matters that people have come along and said, oh no, it means this, and you're a fucking terrible person for even reviewing it. I'm sure some people will say really terrible things about some of the people that made this movie, and even about me for even watching and reviewing it. But you know what? I review movies on the internet. This is a movie. But hey, if you're one of those people, I can't stop you from saying whatever you're gonna say. However, I can offer you a way out. If you think that this is a terrible movie, it was an awful idea and they should have never made it. It's just a despicable, awful thing that they did here. If this movie triggers you in any way and you just think it's the most terrible thing in the world, I have the answer for you. Are you ready? Because it's gonna be tough, but I think together we can do this. Don't watch it. See, that was easy. Teamwork makes the fucking dream work.